This is the review for 4A, the last part of the review for the Algebra 1 final. And first question, number 31, has us graphing the quadratic function y equals x squared plus 6x plus 5. This year we use Desmos to go ahead and do this. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to my screen right here and pull up a Desmos screen, so desmos.com. Click on the graphing calculator, and then go ahead and type in the equation. So it's y is equal to x squared plus 6x plus 5. So you see the equation, all correct right there. And if you need to see this a little bit clearer, you can change some settings over here. I like to do several of these things. So you can play around with that. You could also, if you want to see the table, click on the convert to table. And let's say I want to know what some of these points are over here. Go down to the vertex there, but let's say I want like several of the other ones. I'll put -3, -4, -5, -6. And I think that'll be good. And I'm going to bring these back up over here. So remember, you can pause this video whenever you'd like. So what you would do is check out the graph on Desmos and then match it with the ones that I give you on the test. All right, so that is the first one. Switching back to my document camera here. And I've already filled in this next one because I had to restart this video. So I'll just go over what I did. So you're going to be shown a graph and given 4 possible functions that could have made that graph. So the first thing that I did in the purple, I wrote opening up. This parabola is opening up, which means that there's no negative in front, which means there's no a negative a out front. So that eliminated A and C because those had negatives. Okay, originally, if you can't see it there, there's a minus right up front of the x plus 3. Then, I noticed from the graph that there are 2 intercepts right there at -3 and +3. Well, answer D is only telling me there's 1 answer, and B is telling me there's 2. So it had to be that one. And then number 33, and this is kind of what caused my little problem, that number right there, on the original version said -12, and we can't actually do that one. So I had to change it to a +12, and then this will work. So we did some of these just by factoring, but we didn't solve yesterday. So let's just go ahead and solve it. So remember, the number here at the top comes from the first number. In this case, it's a 1 times the 12. So the 12 goes on the top, the B goes on the bottom, so that's -7. And I want 2 numbers that multiply to +12 but add to a -7. So in this case, since it has to multiply to a positive number, the numbers have to both be negative or both be positive. But I'm going to make them both negative since it has to add to a negative. Okay, so it's -3 times -4 is +12, and it would add to -7. Now from there, I can go ahead and factor it. That would be x minus 3 times x minus 4 equals 0. Then I'm going to break that into 2 different equations, like so, and solve each one. So my 2 answers would be x is equal to 3 and x is equal to a 4. All right, moving on to this next one here. A little bit of a word problem, but we just have to set this up. It says the width of a rectangular closet is 2 feet more than its depth. Also, the area of the closet is 15 square feet. What is the depth of the closet? Now this one will be a multiple choice, so you could kind of work backwards, but I'm going to set up a system of equations to go ahead and do this. Now we know if it's a rectangle, the area is going to be the width times the depth. So I'm going to use those 2 letters, D times W is going to equal 15. All right? But then it also tells us something about the width here. The width, right there, is 2 feet more than the depth. So I can write, well, that should be a plus. I was almost making it a T. Okay? So the width of the closet is 2 feet more than the depth. So D plus 2. So I want to go ahead and figure out the depth. So I guess the way it's set up is going to be easier. Here, why don't I do it this way? So I'm going to go ahead and take this equation right here, and just kind of thinking it in my head here. So I'm going to go ahead and replace the W up top with the D plus 2. And then that's going to help me finish this problem. So the D, I'll write it off to the side here. The D, instead of times W, is going to be now times D plus 2. I'm just replacing or substituting that in. Okay, distribute that out. We'd have D squared plus 2D is equal to 15. Subtract the 15 from both sides, and I get a problem that hopefully looks a little bit familiar. Okay, we've done this sort of thing before. So I'm going to do another x, like we did on the previous problem, like so, and it'll be negative 15 on the top and a 2 on the bottom. So I know I'm going to need a 3 and a 5. They're 2 apart. One of them has to be negative, but since I want it to add to a positive, it'll be negative 3 times positive 5. So I can factor this into D minus 3 times D plus 5 is equal to 0. Turn that into 2 equations. And we get answers of D equals 3 and D equals negative 5. Now, when one of the answers doesn't make sense, you can cross it out. So my answer is going to be 3. So the depth is 3 feet. Okay, and I know it doesn't make sense because it's negative, and a distance can't be negative. All right, we have 2 more to do, and then I have to let a class in, so you might hear the door knocking, but hopefully they'll see that I'm busy. All right, factor completely. The first thing we want to do is look for a GCF, or greatest common factor. And in this case, I can factor out a 3x. So I'm going to divide out a 3x from both of these terms, and I will get 3x times x squared minus 4. But I can factor that right there into something else, because that's going to be a difference of squares. So that can be factored into 3x times x plus 2 times x minus 2. So once again, that's the difference of squares pattern. We don't have to solve it because it just said to factor completely. Now the last thing we have to do is this problem. Now we don't even have to solve it. We're just going to plug in the correct numbers. So I'm going to use some color coding here. I'm going to identify my A, B, and C. And I'm going to also make sure I get the negative in there. Okay, so A is the first number, so that's going to be going right here and right there. The B is the middle coefficient, so it'd be in those 2 places. And then finally, C only appears once. It's right there. So, negative B. Well, B looks like it's minus 13, so it's negative 13. So opposite of negative 13 is positive 13. Then B squared, well, negative 13 times negative 13 is 169, so that'll go in right there. Now 4 times A times C. Well, let's kind of do this off to the side. See, I have 4 times A, which is a 2, times C, which is a negative 24. Okay, so that one is going to be 8 times 24. So that would be 192, but of course negative 192. So I put that parentheses in there because the minus, it's going to be minus negative 192. The bottom, 2 times A, well, A was that 2, so this was a 4. And I'm going to go ahead and just put these off to the side because I should have probably done that in the beginning. And C is negative 24. Okay, and that's the last question I had to do.